Keith in Decatur, Georgia. Hey, Keith, what's on your mind?
Hey, man, it's an honor to speak with you. And I'll be real short. You know, the real lesson of Roosevelt in the 30s was that too much money in the hand of too few just stagnates growth.
Yep.
And a lot of the New Deal was really kind of privately based just to get the economy going, but to add some regulations and stuff to it so it'll run sensibly. It was Eisenhower that kind of cemented a lot of the more socialistic programs because he saw the value in it. So
yes, the Republican Eisenhower.
I don't know.
Yes.
I just wanted to share that with you. I know you're brilliant, Thom, and I knew if I threw that out there, you could expand on it. But again, it's a real honor speaking to you. It's my first time calling the show.
Well, thank you, Keith. See, during Eisenhower's time, Eisenhower had the advantage, even as a Republican, that virtually everybody alive, or voting age at that time, remembered FDR, or at least the tail end of FDR's administration and Harry Truman. And they knew the situation, they knew the circumstances. It was within their lives and their families, their parents' lives, that the economy had crashed so badly under Herbert Hoover, and FDR put it back together, and they got it. And FDR in his famous 1954 letter to his brother Edgar. His brother Edgar was a right-winger who was a John Birch Society guy. And he wrote this long screed. You can find this easily online. He wrote this long screed to Dwight. His brother was Edgar Eisenhower. He wrote this long letter to Dwight, the president, third year into his presidency, saying, you've got to do something about these communists, and you got to do away with the minimum wage, and you got to start rolling back the New Deal because it's all communist stuff that FDR was doing, blah, 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 blah. And FDR and Eisenhower, Dwight Eisenhower, replies to his brother Edgar, and the letter is just a masterpiece. And he goes through and he says, I understand what you're saying, but what you're talking about, the American people, they want moderation now. They don't want extremism. We need to put this country back together after a terrible war. And then he says, I know that there are some people, principally a couple of oil guys down in Texas. And he wasn't talking about the Koch brothers back then. He was talking about the guys who cornered the silver market, the Hunt brothers. And he says, I know that there's a couple of oil guys down in Texas who think it can be done. But any political party that tries to end labor protections, any political party that tries to end Social Security, basically will never see the light of day again. I know that there are some, these oil billionaires down in Texas who think they can do it, but he said their number is small and they are stupid. And in fact, you can easily Google that letter simply by typing Eisenhower, number is small, they are stupid, and it'll pop right up. So you're right, Keith. I mean, everybody understood. And it wasn't until that generation began to die off in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s that Reagan was able to come along and sell us snake oil about what his primary opponent in 1980, George Herbert Walker Bush, called voodoo economics, which is let's flip the equation upside down. Instead of saying that aggregate demand drives the economy, in other words, wages is what drives demand for product because people get a paycheck and they go out and buy things. And by buying things, they're creating demand in the economy, which has to be filled by people building factories. That's the way it's worked since, 7,000 years ago, Gilgamesh. This is what Adam Smith wrote about in 1776 in Wealth of Nations. Instead of that, we're going to try a whole brand new economic theory that Alvin Lafler and Steve Moore just came up with. Alvin did it on a napkin while we were having lunch, called the Laffer curve. And what we're going to say is, instead of giving the money to the people at the bottom so that they can buy things, which creates demand, which stimulates the economy, which causes entrepreneurs to open factories, and thus, the rich get richer and the middle class gets richer. Instead of doing that, we're going to screw the middle class. We're going to screw the working class. To hell with them. They don't make jobs. And we're going to throw all the government resources and money that we can at the very, very rich on the theory that it'll trickle down to everybody else, and that somehow they will be incentivized to build factories and create jobs out of the goodness of their heart. And instead, what the rich did is they put their money in the Bahamas. Apple's got over $100 billion stashed, offshore from their money in China, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Reaganomics has hollowed out our middle class. It's handed trillions of dollars, literally trillions of dollars, to the top 1% in the almost 40 years since Reaganomics really went into place. And this is what you're seeing. Brilliant observation, Keith. Thanks a lot for the call, and thanks for listening to SiriusXM.